Hi, good morning. It's a little bit later than morning actually, but yeah, I would like to welcome my guest today. His name is Chandandeep, and he works for the German Research Center of Artificial Intelligence. In German, it's DFKI, and that is situated in Bremen. We met over LinkedIn, as I have a lot of guests here that I'm getting in contact first, either on Twitter or X or LinkedIn. And yeah, I was very fascinated by the approach. You were not only sharing some curated content as I and other do, but you were sharing a lot of your own content. But before we dive into that, I would like to give you the opportunity to say a few words about yourself, introduce yourself, and then I would like to dive deep into you as a person. And yeah, we have a little chat about your background and yeah, what you're doing today and what you're aiming for doing maybe tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot, Ilir, for this interview. It's really nice. I'm looking forward to sharing my experience and also talking a bit about your experience and just having a nice chat with you. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm currently a researcher at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, and I did my master's in robotic systems engineering from Aachen a few years ago, and then after that, I worked in computer vision as a computer vision software developer, and then I moved to research. So yeah, I actually started posting on LinkedIn while I was applying for my internships, and I was reaching out to people who were already working in the industry, and it was the first time that I was doing it, and I was surprised to see that people were actually responding. So these were like industry professionals, and they would like answer my queries and everything, and uh, they would even like forward my applications, unsolicited applications, to the HR departments. And I think that is when I realized that LinkedIn is a really powerful platform. And then slowly I just also started with sharing other people's posts, which I found really interesting. And I thought that this just is a really powerful way to build your network and connect with really like-minded people, and also learn a lot from like professionals. Like all of the top notch industry professionals are there. So this is really an opportunity that one should not miss in today's time. So I just started doing it, and then at some point I realized that I could also share things just based on my experience, things that I keep on learning on a day-to-day basis, and that would just also help me refresh my basics and knowledge. And it would also help other students, let's say, or other people who are interested in such content.
Why you and you said that you were looking for connections on a professional level, because the question always comes up: why is it LinkedIn? Why is it not Reddit, where a lot of communities exist already, or why is it not X or Twitter? Because there are a lot of people that are in robotics or automation or computer vision or computer science are on those platforms as well. And you said that you started because you had a specific idea, specific goal, getting in contact with people, getting in contact with the industry or people within the industry. So you still think that this is a good platform to do this, because nowadays you see a lot of Instagram posts, YouTube videos, and not only educational content but entertainment content as well. But before we dive into that question, actually, I would like to go a few steps back, which I always trying to do is. You were mentioning your master's thesis that you were doing on in Aachen, but maybe we can go a little bit further back, and you can tell me how you got introduced in the world of robotics and computer science. And yeah, I'm always interested in how people got the first contact with this
Mhm.
world.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting question. So yeah, I did my master's in robotics, but prior to this, I was basically a mechanical design engineer. So I worked at Honda R&D for 2 years in India, and
Mm-hmm.
my bachelor's was in manufacturing processes and automation engineering from NSIT, which is a part of Delhi University,
Mm-hmm.
and or was back then. Now it's an independent university,
Mm-hmm.
and this manufacturing process and automation course is kind of similar to mechatronics. So there's a lot of mechanical engineering, but also electronics and computer science and automation. So a lot of everything of these three domains: mechanical, electronics, and software. So from there, so the environment of my college was such that there were a lot of projects ongoing in the domain of mechanical and automotive engineering. So I was kind of drawn to that. I took part in a few mechanical engineering related competitions, like there's this Baha SAE competition where you would design and build an off-road vehicle and participate in that competition to really demonstrate how that vehicle behaves in races and in other endurance tests that the competition had. So I was basically doing all of these things, but I also was somehow interested in robotics, but only probably the mechanical side of robotics. So I was not involved too much in programming. I think programming was something I was taught formally. So C++ was there in our curriculum, but I was mainly in the mechanical side of things. And then we were learning kinematics and dynamics. And this was where my first step towards robotics came into being. So kinematics and dynamics, it's also the basic, let's say, engineering principles on which the robotic movements are based on. So there's forward kinematics and inverse kinematics and so on. So for me, I was interested in basically how, if I move a link of a mechanical system, how would that motion translate to, let's say, another joint or another link of a complex mechanical system. So for me, this was really fascinating. If I make a small movement, how would the position, velocity, accelerations change? And we would be able to do some action that we want, manipulate a mechanical system to get what we want. So for example, it could just be an excavator arm mechanism, or it could be a linkage based mechanism, and so on. And from that, I started becoming more interested in robotics as I realized that the mechanical robotic grippers also had these could have these complex mechanisms, and the robotic arms, the robotics systems, they involved a lot of kinematics and dynamics. So that was my first step. And then after
Oh, wait a
that,
second.
yeah,
Sorry, but because this is very mechanical oriented or
yeah.
hardware, sorry,
Mhm.
hardware oriented, right? And so how is this related to the things that you're doing at the moment, right? Because
At the
as
moment, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So this was back in India, everything. So because my perspective was still like mechanical side of things,
hmm
and so I then decided to do a master's. And even in my like statement of purpose for my master's application, I basically had more of this perspective that hey, I have explored a lot of kinematics and dynamics and so on, and I want to dig a bit deeper and really think of this from a robotics perspective. So this is why I started applying to robotics. And then only during my master's I started exploring the software side of things, and I was exposed to that hey, there's this machine learning thing that is really interesting, that is actually making used to make intelligent autonomous robots, and not just having hard coded mechanical behaviors, which I was initially interested in. But during my master's, I was exposed to machine learning, computer vision, and other software side of things. And then I said, okay, I could easily stay in the mechanism and mechanical multi-body dynamics side of things. Or maybe this is my chance to really think what is really more exciting to me, but also what would be more impactful in the future. And then I said, okay, the mechanical systems are more or less developed. Of course, this is something that is arguable. The mechanical side can also be improved a lot, as we see these Boston Dynamics robots. For example, the recent video that we saw of Boston Dynamics Atlas transitioning from a complex hydraulic based system, a really bulky system, to a more electric motor based system. So the mechanical side obviously also keeps on innovating, but at the same time, there is enough hardware development that we can say that we have good capability of hardware, and we just at that level, if we keep on making more progress in the software and artificial intelligence side of things, that would just make the progress of robotics faster, so that we have more autonomous robots. So maybe one reference I can give is a video from Peter Abil's lab that he also shared in his video. So Peter Abil is this professor from University of Berkeley, I think, and he shares this video from
and founder of Covariant, right?
yeah, of Covariant, exactly. So he mentions this video very fondly of a research paper from ICRA, which is a robotics conference. And there we see that a bunch of students are actually, or actually there's a robotic system that is doing everyday household tasks like picking up a glass or manipulating everyday objects, cleaning the house, and so on. And then the plot twist is that this robot is actually being teleoperated by the students or the PhD students who were actually involved in that research. So the main idea is that the hardware is really capable, and what needs to be done is that the focus needs to be on the intelligence side of robotics, because we already have good enough hardware to be able to do everyday complex tasks. But if we don't have the algorithms to make the robot fully autonomous, so this is why there is so much research and development in computer science side of robotics, and not that accelerated research in the mechanical design, because we say that it's good enough, at the moment.
I mean, recently as you mentioned a few names already now, as we are in a very humanoid robot hype, and this seems to be a recurrent topic in the last few episodes. But yeah, the hype is big, and just these days we have the Automate in Chicago. We have a few revelations over there as well. And I found it very interesting that you have a background from the mechanical parts and then decided to switch to the software side. And do you think this is, I mean, you gave a few reasons why this happened, but generally speaking, when I had this conversation a few times now, it's hardware is hard, and hardware is not necessarily something that you can do at home, right? I've been in contact with a few people on X that are working on humanoid robots. They're printing at home, so with 3D printers and a few electronic parts and gears and servos, you can build something, right? But hardware is still very expensive. It's not as accessible and easy to use as software. So I found it very interesting that you said that it is on a level where you can actually do something, right? But the problem is still you need to control those things, right? And so this is what brought you to the software side of robotic. And this happened after you finished your bachelor's in India, or while you were in Germany and doing your master's? Can you remember what happened?
So how did what made me transition towards the software
Yes.
side of robotics? So yeah, and in India, basically, as I mentioned, I was more in the mechanical side of things, and I was really interested in even going deeper into designing complex mechanisms. And in my free times, I would create these simulations of interesting mechanism on these design platforms such as CATIA, which is a mechanical design software. And actually, even in the early phases of my master's, I was like, yeah, I think I could still maybe continue in the mechanical side. But then after a few months, I was exposed to so many different subjects and domains that I really had to think that what is it that would have the biggest impact in the future, and also what would align with my interests. So mechanical is still something that I enjoy doing, and I don't mind, playing with CAD softwares. But at the same time, as I started learning Python programming and also these machine learning TensorFlow algorithms, is starting to do that, and also learning these algorithms, I thought that I have so many different things to play with. It was just more opportunities to keep on learning new things and keep on doing more things. So for example, with a computer vision system, you can you can have a drone, which was also one of the first projects that I was working on as part of my working student job at a company. So my role was basically, there's a drone and we have to make it navigate autonomously. Of course, I was involved mainly in the computer vision part. But what was cool was that just from this camera sensor that we have, and using the camera images, it could create a whole map of my room, for example. And this is what I was doing at that point. And this just was really interesting because if we think of a drone, of course, the mechanical side of it is also interesting, but there's this standard structure that we have, which took several iterations and several years into development. But We know that this is a structure that works in the real world. Drones fly, taking the aerodynamics and flight dynamics, all of these things into account. So this is more or less fixed, and there's not much innovation that can be done there. What is really more interesting for me is where I can think of new ideas and I can try out new algorithms. And this is something that can be done more in the software side of robotics at this point. So yeah, so that is why I decided to make that transition to more the machine learning and computer vision side of things. And also because, of course, I got some opportunities where I had industrial exposure to see real world systems, where I could see that these things are actually like quite interesting. And of course, I also was in touch with people who were still doing the mechanical side of things. But then at some point, I was like, okay, I think I have to switch to this because this is just more interesting to me.
So you try and you try to have a look what could be potentially be more interesting in the future, but on the same side, there was enough curiosity for you to go down that path, right? Because when I speak to young students or when I speak to technical founders, very often the question comes up: Do I do something because I think there's more money into it? Because I think there's much more potential work or use cases or business in it, or is there something that I'm really interested in? And I think the holy grail, what everyone is looking for, is both things, right?
Both, exactly.
Something that is interesting you very much, but that is interesting other people as well, and interesting so much that there is opportunity for making a business out of it. I do remember that one of the first times I saw you, you do have your own so-called platform where you are trying to teach robotics and AI. And I found this was very, very interesting because there's two things to be a student, right? I mean, when you're in university, you are among other people and you are within a group and you would like to obtain a degree. But these kind of platforms, and there's plenty of platforms out there, right, that offer different kind of courses and from very well-known and renovated to universities, but also independent institutions. And so how I'm interested in how you came up with the idea of doing something like that. Was that because teaching is always learning, right? When you can only teach something when you know the topic very well. Because if students have an answer, if you're a good teacher, you say, I don't know, but I will come back to it, right? So you need to dig deeper into it to be able to break down complex topics into very simple things so you can actually talk about it, right? I'm not 100% sure who made this quote, but if you cannot explain it in simple terms, you haven't understood it, right? So coming back to my question, what was the original idea that made you build that kind of platform?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, yeah, initially, I mean, for me, it has always been the case that I just share my journey. So initially, when I was just posting like other people's posts that I found really interesting, it was also just what I found really interesting. So that's why I'm sharing it with people, right? But then I said, okay, I'm also learning things on my side, and I could share it. And of course, you put it really perfectly that if you cannot explain it simply, or if you really share it with someone, then you're forced to think of that topic more deeply, and you yourself would understand it better. So mainly that was my motivation. And then I actually explored a lot of things. So okay, the question is, where does this platform come from, right? Like what are the origins of it? So initially, I was just doing this podcast because I was already getting enough technical exposure, and I just wanted to have that perspective with talking to like professionals and see how that goes. It's just always, I mean, you're doing a podcast, so it's always nice to like understand other people's perspectives and interesting technology that's going on. So that was the thing. But then eventually I realized that I actually still want to keep the technical aspect. And then I started doing these meetups online, which were actually surprisingly very successful, in the sense that a lot of people were joining from the very beginning. I'm not doing those meetups anymore because of some time constraints, but a lot of people and a lot of students from India and a lot of other countries were joining. And there it was really spontaneous, where everyone would just share their projects, their ideas, and so on. And sometimes we would just have casual discussions about different topics in robotics and AI and so on. So it was really the perfect way to learn, and I could experiment with creating different structures in the Discord server. So if you're familiar with Discord, there's a lot of different let's say tools and things, that more features that you can play with. So you could create a lot of channels and so on. So I was trying out a bunch of different things. There was this research paper discussion thing that I was trying, but we were not enough people interested in that. And then project-based learning thing and so on. So it was just a lot of fun trying out a lot of different things and so on. And mainly the primary motivation for me to share this was because so I was enrolled in a master's program in the university, but basically a lot of things are things that you still have to figure out by yourself. So for example, my transition from, let's say, mechanical side of robotics, or just mechanical engineering in general, to robotic software and machine learning side of things, there was a lot of really difficult thought process involved, like what do I really want to do and what are my interests and so on. And this is something that nobody can do it for you. No university would teach you, and you can't read a book on that. You just have to identify your interests and so on. And so I thought, like, sharing my journey would maybe give a lot of people perspective on really how they can make career decisions that would be meaningful to them. You could, like, really choose a career path based on where you get a lot of money, like what are, like, logically the most meaningful. And of course, you could earn a lot even as a mechanical engineer. You could earn a lot basically in most of the skills, right? There is a potential to earn money in almost everything if you really do it good. But the fact is that you have to identify what your strengths are, what you're, like, naturally driven by and drawn to, what fields and what kind of tools and things you like to do, and somehow connect that with what kind of impact that you want to do. So this is something that I've also shared in some of my, like, really long form videos on the YouTube channel, where I talk about how you can really identify those interests. And there's a proper framework that I built based on these years of experimentation, myself doing lots of projects in different domains and so on. So to summarize, basically, I wanted to create, like, a systematic structure that would be more individualized and personally suitable to everyone. That would be, let's say, a supplement to the university program, which is entirely technical, and that would help students not just learn these things and not just learn the technical programming skills or other tools and so on, but also really make a career path for themselves. And so that is why I think the meetups, we explored a lot of vast variety of different topics in robotics and AI. And of course, I don't claim to know everything. This was just a way of me exploring things. And slowly after that, I started making blog posts and sharing more like solo videos where I'm just sharing my experience. And I think those started to get more positive feedback, because I think there is not enough people on YouTube who talk about a combination of technical side of robotics, but also, like, how do you personally make these career decisions. There could be, like, YouTube channels where people talk just about the career side of, like, how to make decisions and so on, but not linking it with which specific tools and frameworks you choose. And robotics is actually a really complicated field, right? There are so many different domains. There's
so many difference.
Vision, there's machine learning, there's planning, control, and I also don't know all of these in case nobody knows. Nobody can master all of these. But that is, while it is really exciting, it's also really overwhelming and confusing for students. And this is something that I realized, that if there is a personalizable structure, in the sense that if somebody tells me, hey, you do 2 projects in computer vision, 3 projects in machine learning, you do a few mini projects in control systems, and then you ask yourself these questions, is it interesting to you? Is it something that you can imagine doing for a long time, and so on? A lot of different questions which I've talked about, which I maybe would not go into too much details of. But if there's a structure that you follow, then it just makes your overall learning, like, overall career journey really smooth. And this can be used as a supplement to a professional engineering program, but also uh, if you cannot afford to go for a master's program, if you do not want to go for a master's, if you just learn things from online, and if I provide you with a structure, then you can really work in the industry, because a lot of companies like Google, Facebook, and so on, they don't really care too much about your educational qualifications, but rather your skills and the kind of projects that you've built.
Which is funny, right? Because when you just think of it, I mean, when you have so many applicants, right, then you do need to make a decision how you proceed with them. Just the other day, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said that for their company, they had an open position and like 250 people applied for them. So either you have HR doing a lot of work, and so what is a degree actually, right? A degree is, it shows that you know, at least for a certain amount of time, to be at a specific place for a certain amount of time, right? So that means you can go somewhere and you can do this more than once or twice for a longer period of time, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And then you get some task handed, and you at least to some certain degree, you know how to handle them. So you have some tests, and you are able to sit down to learn, or whatever your technique is, to get those results, right? And then you get the degree. So for an employer to employ you, the degree shows that you're at least capable of some basic requirements that are necessary for everything, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, but as you said, it doesn't help you to really understand, does this person has all the skills that I need, right? I can have a list of requirements, and then you can tell me I have this requirement, and then if you attach those to projects where you show this was the project that I was doing, this was the skill that was necessary, and this was the impact that I had in that project, that can help an employee to better understand if you are the right person to hire. And here I would like to make a short little excursus. So one of our guests, we had him actually 2 times on the podcast. Akshat Patel is his name, and he's in Britain now, but he's from India as well. And we were talking a little bit about this, and the first episode was very well received by students, by people that are very new in the industry, and because we were talking a lot about how to find your way into the industry, and what is a recruiter looking for, what is a company looking for. And I think a recurring topic is always practical projects, that you're showing that you can work in a team, that you can assign yourself to some task, that you have the perseverance to go through, even though it gets harder. As we know, group projects can always be very hard, not only about the technical issues that need to solve, but the dynamics that happens within a team. And as you said, you were starting using LinkedIn as a tool, as a leverage, right? To get in contact with companies, get in contact with people within the industry. And if you said this is one of the reasons why you built this platform, that somehow displays your path, but on the other side can be a blueprint to people that are looking for similar things, right? It's not, if you follow this, then you will have the same outcome, but it can be kind of a curriculum, right? So you can have a look at, and this could be possible outcomes. And I think it's a really interesting idea. And one question remains to that topic is, do you started to monetize that? You were able to, is that something that you were interested in? Yeah, because if it's a course, if it's a blueprint, you put a lot of work in it. And a lot of people are doing things for free, but is this something that you are looking for to expand, or was this just a side project? And please tell me more about it if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's still a side project, because I'm working in a full-time job. Yeah, so maybe first touching into your master's aspect, I just want to make a point here. So, of course, like majority of companies would still look for a master's, right? If you have a master's, they have to like filter out candidates. If someone has a master's in robotics, they would obviously prefer that person. But someone who doesn't have a master's, they have a bachelor's, but they have an amazing set of projects. I mean, you mentioned that. So I think project, and especially maybe team projects, are the best, let's say, simulation for actual real world work experience. So this is something that would be a really strong indicator. And I think personally that if you don't have a master's and you still built a lot of projects, that just shows a lot of initiative from your side, that you took the things in your hands, and you were really hyper motivated because you didn't have the university structure and curriculum. So I mean, if I were to hire someone and if I was in a company, I would really give that person a chance, because that just shows that that person would really also perform in the company, right? Because that is a direct correlation. Okay, so coming to the platform part. So I mean, it's still something that I'm doing on the side. So at some point I realized that I'm making these videos online as well. I mean, from YouTube, it's not a lot of subscribers, so I'm not earning basically anything at all there. And I decided that I want to make a structure which is like a whole curriculum sort of a thing, because this is something that I cannot be. I was making really long form videos. So if you've seen, there's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours video as well, where I share like the complete robotics career guide and so on. I would dump everything, and I would actually really also enjoy that somehow, sharing that. But I realized it's still a video, and it's such a complex thing that I need to, like, if I have to make an impact and if I have to truly help people, I need to have that in the form of a course. And that needs to be in a structure, in the sense of it has to obviously have like videos and also other sort of practical assignments and so on. But more importantly, it has to give them a step by step sort of a structure with practical activities. So even if I say, like, how do you choose your career, right? I mean, this is something that people would say, hey, just try out different things and you would find it. But there's no like formal structure on how many projects to try, what kind of tools should you try, what kind of should you learn, like Python, PyTorch or TensorFlow, or should you learn which simulation platform should you learn? Should you learn Gazebo? Should you learn like Isaac Sim? All these simulation platforms. So the idea is that the universities would also teach you things that are more research specific, because more likely than not, in a university, it's being taught by PhD students or researchers. They're involved a lot in the curriculum. So now I'm in research. I know that perspective really deeply, is that they care more about preparing a student to be research ready. That means that more focus is on theoretical side of things. But the thing is, but the fact is that a majority of students who graduate, even from like technical universities in Germany, right, they're more research centric. But still, a majority of students would want to go to the industry for whatever reasons, for monetary reasons or whatever. And then there is, I feel, a gap because they don't have enough skills. Like, for example, if I'm coming from a mechanical engineering background, I don't have enough programming skills to be able to even apply for internships and so on. So I am personally had to cultivate these skills by myself. So that's why, even though I have a master's program, I like to call myself self-taught, which may or may not be true in this case because I have a master's. But I feel that the majority of my skills that I learned were doing practical projects either by myself or in the industry. And this whole thing, based on my years of experience, I think I know exactly what kind of tools to know because of working in the industries and so on. And I know exactly how to choose your niche, which is something that is not at all talked about within the robotics domain. There are so many different fields and you cannot know everything, as we have touched upon that, and you have to find your niche. And all of these things are so complicated that it's not possible to share in one videos or even 10 videos. And so I thought it makes sense to make a course. And since it is a course, obviously it requires a significant amount of time investment and so on, even monetary investment. So this is something that is not really possible to just offer as a free course, because I also took vacations at my current roles to really spend like 10 to 15 days focusing entirely on the course. So it's a lot of
nice.
really investment that has to be, compensated for in a way, and also monetary. So that is why I think it makes sense to really pursue it in the form of, let's say, a side business activity, and not just because you are limited. I mean, there is of course the idea that not everybody can afford to go for these courses, and I also offer at a nominal price the course. uh, but a lot of people go for masters, and I think if they want to like cultivate their skills, they just need a structure. And I really wish, so this is a course that I have created that would actually be useful for my older self. Let's say if I was starting at my masters, or even when I was actually in India and working as a mechanical engineer, and if I wanted to learn robotics and so on, and the software side of robotics, I was actually trying out a lot of different things. So initially, maybe if I go back a few years, 5 years or so, when I was really considering if I should go for a master's in robotics or not, and I was wanted to explore robotics, so I took up a bunch of courses on Coursera and so on, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this was just overwhelming. I was not at all aware of the software side of robotics. I was still thinking of it from the kinematics and dynamics perspective, and maybe electronics a bit and so on, but not that much software. So if I had a structure, just a structure, and even if I use like resources like free YouTube tutorials online, and have a systematic structure, it would just make the entire process so easy for me. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I would have not gone for a master's. I don't know that yet, but a structure in the form of a course just makes this overall process easy. And so I've not mentioned the name of the course. The course is it's on the website learnroboticsandai.com, and it's called Become a Self-Taught Robotic Software Engineer. So the word self-taught is also like deliberately chosen. Now, if you don't want to work in the industry, you can of course build like Arduino projects and line follower projects and so on. But these would not give you enough skills to really make you employable. But if you learn like Python, TensorFlow, Git, and I've also created free videos on my channel where you can really decide, where you can have a step-by-step guide on what tools to learn. Then you can apply for an internship, because interns really get more opportunities because there's less expectation. Once you get an internship, then you can get another internship maybe, or you can start applying for a full-time job. So the idea is that by means of like creating this course or making a structure and even monetizing it, is to allow people to really easily transition to robotics software engineering from any background, even from a non-engineering background.
What I really like about this approach is, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, is there's a lot of people that are looking towards this very hypey topic at the moment, right?
Mhm.
And last year was the mainstream breakthrough of AI through all those tools. I said this a few times before, if you're listening to this podcast regularly. And this year it seems like robotic, embodied robotic is really is having its moment, right? And but the what a lot of people are struggling with is confidence and really believing in yourself. And there's always I'm missing this skill, I'm missing that degree, I'm missing that experience. And so I'm a huge fan of giving people tools, giving not necessarily a course, but somehow using the nice word enabling people to do what they want to do and to explore what they would like to explore. And having a background in mechanical engineering myself, um, even though I'm not working as an engineer, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm much more interested in the people parts and the business side of it. But what I really like is that look, there is ways, right? The universities, at least at the moment, are not offering those ways. There is, as you said, there is no transition part. If you have a bachelor in mechanical engineering, this is the course you need to take to transition to become a robotic person on the software side, right? And or for example, you have a totally non-technical background, but you would like to go into and work for a tech company. I'm a huge fan of yeah, giving those tools and opportunities to people, because it is interesting to work for a tech company. I love
Yeah.
working with people that are working on machine learning algorithms, that are working on the automation or implementation part. So with automation engineers, and but I do love the sales part. I do love the marketing part. I do love the customer experience, customer support part, because this is what is, in my opinion, because I'm not a technical person, is a very important part. And
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
to, sorry, I don't want to say the engineer can be exchanged very easily. The engineer is just as important. It's a teamwork, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is what I
Just
really
different
like about your
roles, right?
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that you mentioned about, yeah, I mean, there is this idea of limiting beliefs that I also share in terms of like if someone is transitioning or wants to transition from mechanical or electronics engineering. And I mean, my bachelor's was a bit interdisciplinary in the sense that I did have programming and C++ there,
Hmm.
although my focus was on mechanical. But someone who is coming from a pure mechanical engineering background, they have a lot of limiting beliefs. Hey, it's too late. I'm too old now to transition to software. And I don't know if I can even program now. You know, I've been using all different sorts of tools my whole life, and this is just too much. I don't know if I can really afford to invest that much time learning software. What if I'm not smart enough for these? All these things happen. And I mean, I get a lot of messages also from LinkedIn based on that. Um, so I mean, I think it is just it's just allowing everyone to choose what they actually want to do. It's like good for the people, it's good for the industry, because companies would have more like capable candidates to screen from. And if a person is like really motivated, they can transition from software to electronics or electronics to software or any field. And I mean, you and I both know of countless examples of people who have done that, right? Actually, there's one incident or like one anecdote of there was a colleague of mine at a mechanical design company that I was working in, and he became, I mean, we were working professionally there as mechanical engineers, but he realized within a few months that this was not for him. So he
Hmm.
was like, yeah, either I can like totally quit this job and like do something else or go for masters in computer science or whatever. But he also had some monetary constraints.
Mm.
So his story is really inspiring because this guy basically taught himself software engineering, general software engineering on the side with the full-time job, just learning for free. He didn't pay anything at all. Like there's, I think, one website called Geeks for Geeks that he referred to, but essentially any like C++ or programming website. And he just was like coding in all of his free time, and he became so good that he actually got an offer from one of the software companies, and now he's actually in, I think he's working in Adobe or another like big software company. So I
Nice.
think in today's times, you don't have to really rely on a master's program. Of course, I mean, if you can go ahead and do that, it's a really nice experience. You get so much exposure and everything. Uh,
Resources, connections,
Resources and
networking.
exactly structure, networking, every single thing. But if you're really like, if you really like computer vision, and there's just so many resources, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's that if I just give you the structure, that's all you need, because there's so many resources. I don't need to create like tutorials on my YouTube channel because there's already so many good quality lectures and tutorials.
I I think the blueprint or the structure that you're offering is not the only thing that you need. I think
Mhm.
you mentioned something earlier that is much more necessary. The curiosity, but also the grit, right?
Mhm.
The will to really do it. Because
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you go
absolutely,
to
absolutely.
university or not, or if you're self-taught. Maybe self-taught a little bit more because there's a little bit of structure missing. And the peer pressure, if you go to university, you have at least a few colleagues that are trying to go to the library and learning, trying to go to the classes, trying to go and do the exam.
Yeah,
So,
accountability part. Yeah.
really having the grit. And what I found interesting, and let's take this off topic, or maybe some people are interested in this, but what I always interested in these courses is about the closing rate. And so how many people are really getting into a course, how many people are really going through and finishing the course, right? And as you said, this is very extensive. I have a few people that are on X trying to do those course selling, whatever the course might be about. But the thing is, the courses are selling best if the benefit is very clear and if it's very fast in reach. I don't know how to say this in English better, but like a 12-week course will not do as good as a 4-week course, even though the 12-week course
Yeah,
obviously will give you much more in-depth knowledge and more time to experience, right?
yeah.
So I think here the gap between expectations and wishes and reality, there's always big, and finding the right nuance between I
Yeah.
can promise you can do something in 4 weeks, or I promise you can do something in 12 weeks. I would like to lose 5 kilos in 4 weeks, much more likely than I would like to lose 5 kilos in 12 weeks. Even though if you're looking just at the numbers, it's much more likely that you will lose those 5 kilos over the course of 12 weeks versus 4 weeks, right? So,
Yeah.
mm,
That is a very, very interesting point. I mean, a lot of people ask here, how much time do I need to really learn robotics, like make that transition?
mm,
And I do not promise anything in the course. I mean, there's landing page in course curriculum description and everything. I've not
mhm,
mentioned, I mean, I say that ideally this course is designed to be done like within 1 hour, uh, 1 year, not 1 hour. And then because there's a lot of different projects and so on, but it depends, because it's like if you have a full-time job, you have very little time. So for you, maybe you would take twice the amount of time that it is required, or maybe you would be able to complete it within 6 months because you're totally focused on it, you don't have any other distractions and everything. So
mhm,
this is
mhm,
also something very individualistic. I mean, in Germany, for example, if you're enrolled in a bachelor's or master's program, it's generally, let's say, a bachelor's program is for 4 years, but a lot of people take like 8 years to complete as well. So that is pretty normal. In India, it's a bit different, that you are a bit like pressurized, that you have to, because of a lot of constraints and societal pressure and so on. And if it's a 4-year course, you generally have to do it within 4 years. Otherwise, yeah, it's there's a lot. That's another topic, maybe, right?
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, if you have to force people to complete a course within a span, then they would like half-heartedly do that and not maybe gain too much value from that. And so I also offer a community. There's a group associated with the course where
mm,
like people can directly interact with me related to any problems that they have, or interact with other people and form groups to do projects with.
mm,
So the course is actually in an early stage. I mean, I launched it maybe beginning of this year.
mhm,
So I'm also still adding more and more modules and refining it in that sense. But essentially, the idea is that I want to make a system that is equivalent to, or that can be used in addition to the university, to really help people actually transition to robotics. And it has to be flexible, because I'm also taking personalization into account. So like what works
mm,
for one person does not work for another person. So there's a module, uh, for example, where I help you define like your purpose statement, which I call, which might sound a bit woo woo, but it has to just
mm,
do with your career, right? It is not
mm,
like the spiritual purpose or anything. It's just your career. And what I notice is that if you have an insane level of clarity of what you want to do, then there's just nobody stopping you. So if you are a mechanical engineer and you are absolutely sure that if software engineering is the path for you, then you are not afraid to spend extra time on the weekends, or even working overtime or whatever, because you know absolutely that this is the career path for you, because it aligns with your strengths, it aligns with your interests, it aligns with your values, it aligns with the kind of impact that you want to have on this world. And these are basically all the things that you need to know. So in this section on the course, there's activities that help students really identify what their career direction is, and there's like 4 roadmaps to choose from: perception, planning, learning, and control, based on some projects that you have done, and then you follow one particular thing. So
mm,
it is really individualized, and you cannot really say that, hey, all of you have to do like perception related projects. Maybe you don't like computer vision that much, and maybe you like the control side of robotics.
Mm.
So you try out these things, but mini by you doing like 1 to 2 week mini projects, and then you choose your own path, and then you go ahead and really like follow your roadmap, which has more advanced projects and so on. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke a lot about the course, but I found this interesting because, as you said, the original idea for the course came because you were looking for some guidance yourself, right? So, a lot of what you were talking about now, or the last few minutes, were not necessarily only about the course, but about your path and how you're trying to find your way through that, right? So, this is the reason why I thought this was very interesting. Not only because of your course, you can
Yeah,
go to the
in
website and
general.
have a look at it, but it shows what you thought would be a good idea for you and how you thought, how can I get out of this jungle of, as you said, it could be overwhelming when you start exploring the topic of robotics, right? It's
Exactly.
it's it's very wide. There's so many niches within the umbrella term of robotic, and this is the reason why I found this very interesting. And so we do know that you're working for the German Research Center of Artificial Intelligence in Bremen. We do know that you have your background in not only mechanical engineering, but now software engineering as well. And so we spoke off topic a little bit about this. What is coming? What is coming for you? So what you're aiming at? What do you seek? Because I think this is what some people are always asking. And you said just a few minutes ago, if you have a very clear idea, it's much easier to reach that, right? Because you have this this goal, and then you just need to figure out how to get there, right? And this is easy to do for everyone. It doesn't matter what kind of role model you have. You actually, if you want to become a person, you just need to do the things that the person you would like to become is doing, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, I would be interested in. So, what do you think? What could be potential next steps for you? What are you aiming at?
Yeah. So I mean, so the main idea is that if I'm talking about robotics, I have to constantly improve my skills in
Mm,
the field. And for me, like my niche is more in the direction of machine learning as it applies to robotics. So this is also what I'm doing in my research. So I'm mostly involved in reinforcement learning for robotics, and there's a lot of problems with making reinforcement learning applicable for robotics in the real world scenario. So this is what I'm exploring. So there's like model free and model based reinforcement learning, and then there's also imitation learning, and a lot of different learning methodologies. And I think these days there are these behavior models like which are analogous to these large language models, but they're more apply specific to robotics. Now this is something that is just starting to emerge, so I have not been exploring these too much, because at the same time it is also really hard to really keep track of the progress as it is really happening. So this is something that I'm definitely also interested in exploring. But generally, I think I want to keep improving my skills in robotics, mainly in the machine learning side of robotics, but also in other domains. So I was also exploring a bit of controls, in which I do not have too much experience. So there's
mm,
this T thing, right? That I mean, you know about, is like in terms of your skill set, and that is mainly that is applicable to any industry, but mainly in robotics, particularly in robotics, because you have to have like the bottom part of the T is like your specialization in like your one niche. For example, maybe it's machine learning for me, and then the top is the broad aspect. The top portion of the T is like broad set of skill sets within an industry. So for example, for you, maybe it would be also like interacting with customers and industries, and having people skills, but also technical skills. But there would be like one specific domain you're targeting, and then you also have maybe technical knowledge of all of these different things. So for me, I want to also keep on exploring different sides of robotics, and also keep on like improving my skills in one domain, which and I would continue to be posting my journey on LinkedIn or YouTube, because maybe it helps others. Hopefully it helps others, but most importantly, it also helps me understand
mm.
my skills better and where I am going. It's like it's also like if after a few years I can see that here I switched my journey from this direction to this, and I did this and this. So it is also an interesting way to really understand and like forge my own career path better.
Creating content is some form of expressing yourself, right? And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're speaking about this, if you're writing it down. And what I tell people very often, or even my customers, is write down what you would like to do, because you think you have an idea, and then you're forced to articulate it, right? You're not only speaking about it, but writing it down. So to articulating your thoughts. And in that process, you realize a lot of things you haven't thought through. Because
Yeah.
if you can, I mean, you can write down gibberish, but it's much harder than just thinking about things, right? And because there's so many connections and so many back thoughts, but when you bring them on the paper, you do need to be very clear, because you cannot have the context, you cannot have the background and the other side thoughts to that particular one thought on the paper. I mean, you can, but then you're starting not writing down sentences, but having or drawing pictures, right? So from my perspective, what you do is, with expressing yourself here, you're articulating your thoughts, right? And in the process of articulating or posting or shooting videos, you're understanding better what you would like to do, right? You're understanding yourself better. And I think this is something that people can, this is a technique that people should adopt and should train on, because it really, really helps you on your path. I'm very happy that you took the time, and that you gave us some insights. I would like to give you the last words in what, because you now said, I would like to explore other things and dig deeper into the things I'm very good at, or I'm very interested in. How can you articulate this into the physical world? Is there something that do you think founding something could be something for you? Or I'm always interested in would you like to stay here, because you said that you're originally from India? Would you like to explore other countries, other continents? I'm very interested in what your ideas are.
I think your screen froze a bit, so I might have missed something. But in general,
Oh, mm,
the question is like what my next steps are, right? In a way.
mhm,
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, so I want to stay in the machine learning and computer vision domains within robotics, and I want to keep on exploring that, and I want to also explore, keep on expanding on that, and like exploring other things. And I think this is something, so I've thought about like I mean, in Germany also there's like these startup incubator centers and so on, and this is also something that I was exploring in the past. Like during my master's thesis time, I was like, okay, do I want to give a try at startups and so on? But to me, I think the technical skill set is something that I find really meaningful, and I want to really like not stop at that. So if I
mm,
am like starting to like found a startup or something, then my focus would shift from technical to maybe the business system side
mm.
of things, which at
Good
this
point.
point I am not super interested in, but I might change in the future. You never know. So
Mm,
at this point, my interests are more that I want to like keep on expanding my skill set in the technical side of things, and then just keep on sharing my journey. So yeah, that is what it is. And of course, things change in the future, and you know, you have more insights, you have more experiences, and so on. But yeah, that would be my take.
mm. Yeah, again, I'm very thankful that you took the time and shared so much about your journey and about the things that you were doing and doing. And I think if people are listening to it, and not necessarily only doing your course, but I can advise everyone to do it who is struggling with these topics, but yeah, listening to what helped you on your journey and what worked out for you, and thinking things through and working on the topics you were just mentioning. Yeah, I'm very happy that you took the time, and I hope you have a wonderful. Today is a holiday, so I hope you're enjoying the good weather and looking forward to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I really enjoyed the questions that you asked and the conversation. I think it was really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing it on online and I also enjoy your posts on LinkedIn. I think that is also very inspiring, and always new technological developments. I think it is also important to keep in touch with what is advancing, and I think that is really, really exciting as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.